Hi. Hello. How you doing today? Good.
We are live online. We haven't started the meeting, but just letting everyone know. I kind of spread out the packets. I've got a couple more here. Not enough. If anyone wants extra agendas, I have them here. And then there's also a public sign-in sheet that everyone could sign in, please.
I think you're oh. Hello. Hey, Mark. What you want?
Hi.
Yes. I just speaking.
Oh, how are you?
Is this your daughter?
Oh, yes.
This is the track star we've been hearing about?
Yes, that's good. Say hi, Savannah.
I've been talking to you big time. Welcome. What events were you participating in?
100,
Yeah.
100, 200 shots. How are you this afternoon?
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. What's your favorite?
Good.
More by one?
Yeah.
Yeah. You must be fast.
Yeah.
What's that
He is
shot?
excellent at everything.
You care for that?
No.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I tried that.
Say it, get it out.
It's not that much either.
She's excellent. And so many, I mean, I've watched her from baby to, I'm so impressed, young mother. Her mom used to be one of my clients. Used to be because I can no longer service. Here, this right here was all that smoke from that house. Yeah, and other stuff along like yes, it catches up. All this stuff is just bad for us. Take better care of ourselves. More veggies and fruits.
Okay, did anyone receive the report from Commissioner? Was it in the packet last month from Mr. Hudson?
Yeah, I sent that additional email out that said he did send that to me. It was after the packets went out. We felt like it wasn't a pressing issue, so we'll put it on the agenda next month.
Okay.
That also gives me time to review that compared with the other draft one, and we'll present what makes sense for next month.
Now I remember.
Is Miss Hall, did she say she was not gonna make it?
No, I spoke with her. She is planning
Oh,
on
then
being
we'll
here.
wait another couple minutes, okay. Give her like 2 minutes, and if she's not here about 4:05, I'll start. Take
Yeah,
over.
because I'm tired.
Okay, I'll give her to 4:05.
I'm working or not working per
Then
se. The youth, are in the community and, I had that in Jefferson. Also different from the store.
Okay. I didn't see that being.
I need to
This
do
is what we get from the plan.
That's just,
That we were gonna put for the plan on application.
nope, that's my application.
Okay, so is that different than what I have here for what you sent me?
Yeah, it was like about 5 years
It
ago.
is.
It is different, yeah.
Okay. 60,
Oh,
I mean, from the 60s up until about 70,
Okay.
until about, I think the last one probably lasted for about 8.
Wait,
But, anyway, it would be a nice, little small grocery store.
Remember the one across the street that was the road? It's like the one you're talking about.
Okay, there used to be a gas station, cleaners.
Do you have a packet up there, Miguel? Do you have a packet?
I need one more.
He's,
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, his name is Boyd.
Yeah.
I spoke to him yesterday.
You have a public sign in, if anyone else needs
The
to
money
sign
is.
it, and somebody
Yeah.
put agenda
But it
like
was like maybe a couple of years ago.
Yep, I'm gonna add into the plan.
We have more
Needs some of this.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order since it is 4:05, and then if Ms. Hall comes in, she can kind of jump in and take over. Roll call, please.
Emma Hall, Susanna Warren,
Present.
Sam Hudson, Ivy Chandler,
present.
Emma Kennard,
Present.
Mary Alice Adams,
Present.
Miguel Clark, James Chenner.
Okay, next up, we have the review of our minutes from May 9th.
With the exception of my vote, is that a no? Oh, yeah. Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
You want to talk, Commissioner Adams, about what you were saying?
No, we're not gonna be here all evening.
Okay, so no discussion.
Try not to be.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Adams,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next up, we have communications, and there is none. So we're gonna move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments today?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Adams?
I don't remember what we actually, said, but I know that, Teresa last month had indicated that maybe we should add something to the agenda, just in case we want to add or talk about a topic. Would it be under communications, or we decided not to do that at all?
It was decided that wasn't needed. That was approval
Okay,
of the
because
agenda.
Well, maybe we can have some discussion along the way when we get finished with these more important matters.
Or maybe you can say that under also member comments.
That'll be fine. But I'm gonna want some, discussion on the matters that,
So you want to rediscuss the last month's topic? Is that what you're saying?
no,
Okay.
no.
So we'll address it under member comments. For committee reports, we don't have any. Next up, we have the treasurer's report, and if anyone has a packet, you can jump to pages 6.
So here is your May balance sheet for May 2024. You'll see that your money market account, that's your LBRF, that's kind of that sustainable program that you have the account at the end of those Brownfield plans, that has a balance of $509,974. Your checking and savings has $956,135. So your total assets are $956,135.82. Total liabilities are $4,507.95, bringing your total liabilities and equity to $956,135.82. Your statement of income and expense Sorry. My finger got a little excited. We had interest expense of $650. I do want to mention this miscellaneous income is from the project application fee for the King Housing last month that was approved, so that was deposited. So we had a total income last month of $1,150.73. We have professional services expenses that totaled $4,957.95. We've got our total net income through the year of $64,033.91. Any questions on the financial report? If I could get a motion to approve, and then we'll discuss the payables listing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Hello there.
Are we ready for a roll call?
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Clark.
Thank
you. Clark, your vote on the financial report.
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Sarah Hull, I don't know if you heard that discussion, if you're ready to vote on this matter.
Matters, which one is it?
It's the financial report for May.
I've read it in my paper. Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Now, where are we?
Next, we have our payables listing for June. These are our professional services. So the landmark invoice for May services was $812.25. As you can see, Mark's kind of on his way out, so not needing to do as much as he has in the past. Plant Moran invoice is standard for $450. Fishbeck has had to do some more work this month, including working on some of the policies and procedures we're gonna look at. So that invoice was $36.95.70 for a total of $4,957.95.
Need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Now, we have discussions and concerns. Any discussions? Any concerns? Hearing none, roll call.
Adams,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Hull,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Hudson, I don't know if you heard enough. Motion carries.
Next item. Application of one, okay, new business. Old business.
Okay, so you want this in for the application?
Oh,
Okay, bear with me for just a minute. So this is the project application for Project T. In your packet, you can see pages 15 to 24. The development team has brought a presentation, so I'm gonna load that up.
Okay. Old business.
Is that
It's
what
the
we're-
bottom one, the one that starts with updated.
Perfect. Okay.
So just a reminder before they start, this was an application that came before the board a couple months ago. We're quite ready to have the full presentation. This board wanted to make sure that Fishbeck was working with the city to make sure everything was aligning with city goals. So we have both the application and the Brownfield plan on the agenda. At this point in time, we're just talking about the project application.
Everyone, my name is Rosa Skinner, and I am a senior manager of global social responsibility at Whirlpool Corporation. And I appreciate you taking the time to hear our presentation today. I also have an additional role, and I run a food pantry at Harbor of Hope in Benham Harbor, which is coincidentally right down the street from the proposed project plan, which is the old site for the former Mercy Hospital. So I wanted to take this time just with the purpose to bring us back to the inspiration of the project, and before my colleagues present the official project. But I just wanted to share a personal story which was the inspiration, and it highlights the critical need for housing that is stable in Benham Harbor. And that was the story that led to the creation of Project T. So as I mentioned before, I run that food pantry, and I was asked to deliver food to a local couple, two adults, their former foster kids, and because of a lot of childhood trauma, they face significant cognitive and educational challenges. So what I noticed when I dropped off the food was that their living conditions were just horrific. They had cockroaches on the wall. The whole house was in a state of disrepair, with a landlord that ignored it and did nothing to fix their situation. Because of the trauma that they have experienced, they clung to each other and were also expecting a child. So the thought that a child was going to come into this type of living situation was even more sobering for me. I shared this with Erin, who works for Harbor Habitat and CEO there. We meet regularly with my regular work, and housing, of course, is at the top of what we do. And we just wanted to come up with solutions of, obviously, with the challenges that they face. Traditional housing was not going to be the answer or a solution for them. So as we talked about what we could do, this is where we came up with the plan for Project T. And you're probably asking yourselves, why do I share this now? It's because I want you to be able to, and I humbly ask that you all keep that at the heart of what this project means. We want to be able to change the location, that old site that is sitting there empty. We want to turn this into a vibrant community. We want it to be able for it to be sustainable and bring new opportunity and new life to that area. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Erin and Redevelopment as well. So I'll let them take the slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin Hudson. I've been the Executive Director of Harbor Habitat for Humanity for the past 13 years. Harbor Habitat has built 117 homes in the city of Benton Harbor and Benton Charter Township. Since 1996, actually, providing safe, decent, affordable housing to over 500 of our community members. Previous renters who are now homeowners and have paid over $2 million in property taxes. Several years ago, we found ourselves in a situation where we had run out of buildable land. And we've had our eyes on 960 Agard ever since the hospital was demolished. I met with Rosa, and she and I began talking about the needs of our community and brainstorming what 960 Agard could become. This brainstorming session led to what we refer to as Project T, the terrarium. It's a beautiful, fully functioning mini ecosystem, a community within a community of diverse housing for diverse individuals and families with diverse housing needs. So there will be single family home ownership, apartment rentals, and possibly even some rent-to-own options. Rosa and her manager, Deb O'Connor's support and input were very instrumental in helping us secure a $1 million grant and gap funding to help us from the Whirlpool Foundation to keep this project going and moving forward. I'm also here today with my partners, Renovare, Jill Ferrari and Shannon Morgan. Renovare Development is a majority woman-owned social impact commercial real estate development company. I chose to partner with Renovare after hearing them speak to a group of Michigan Habitat affiliates. I was extremely impressed not only by their personal stories, but by their focus on transformational projects that serve a deep community need. The right partnership is key to the success of a development like this. Harbor Habitat wanted partners who were concerned about making a positive impact in the communities they serve and who also wanted to be a part of those communities moving forward. This was important to me personally because this is my hometown. Professionally, it was important because when I look at the landscape of Harbor Habitat's portfolio, we have over 100 scattered site homes. And I thought, what an impact this could have made to our community if they were all in a centralized location. But I knew that to do this was a much larger endeavor than Harbor Habitat had ever taken on by ourselves. I spoke with Jill and Shannon about Project T, this fully functioning community with a retail area, child care, possibly grocery store, and mixed place housing that will bring everyone from young professionals, senior citizens, veterans, and everyone in between together where they can live, work, play, learn, and socialize together. Harbor Habitat and Renovare have created a partnership, and together we are Project T Benton Harbor LLC. This development is going to be located at 960 Acre and 807 Wells Street, the previous location of Mercy Hospital. Project T Benton Harbor LLC is proposing a 3-phase development. The first phase consists of 14 duplexes or 28 units of single-family houses for sale. And they'll be sold to individuals and families who make between 60 and 120% of the area median income. Phase 2 will be the mixed-use building, which consists of 12,500 square feet of retail commercial space on the ground floor and 3 top floors with 39 apartments for rent. Phase 3 will be 4 to 5 duplexes along Wells Street, provided the contamination that was found there is removed. And we'll be able to build those 4 to 5 duplexes for families through Harbor Habitat at 30 to 80% of the area median income. This will be a total of 77 homes in that location for sale and for rent. So if you look at the picture on the left, that is the mixed use building with commercial space that will be along Empire. And next to that are the duplexes. If you go to the next slide, you will see aerial views of the development. Okay, I'm sorry. You can go back to the renderings. Thank you. I thought they showed the aerial views, but this is a close-up look of the mixed-use building that goes along Empire and the duplexes. Project T started with the need for affordable housing in Benton Harbor by partnering with the city of Benton Harbor to acquire and rezone the land, and partnering with Renovare and Whirlpool to help breathe life into this vision. we will be able to realize this vision of 77 new homes for residents in a matter of 3 years, something that would have taken us at least 25 years to do on our own. Francis of Assisi has a quote that epitomizes the construction of this project. Start by doing what's necessary, then what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. So we're here today to ask you to help us to do the impossible. So we are going to stop here, and the rest of the presentation will be discussed during the plan phase.
Oh, so this is, that's fine, okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So just as a reminder, and I'll go ahead, but, here is the actual application, and, so we've got the application here, the Brownfield plan will come later. So essentially, this first request is the board saying, do we think this project has merit? Does it sound like something we want to support as an authority? And this would also allow accepting that $500 application fee. And then we'll get into the specifics of what the Brownfield plan ask is later in the agenda. I do just want to be clear that Project T as a whole is a much larger project. When we get to the Brownfield plan, it'll just be that phase 1 of development, but we'll get into those details later. Are there any questions on the application itself?
Yes.
Okay. Shannon, her hand.
Yes, I'd like to be clear on what is the area of median income. What amounts are these representing? And that's simply because I'm curious as to whether current residents, the family that she referenced, would even be able to afford it.
Okay, so for the first phase, for the duplexes, that we're targeting families and individuals who make 60 to 120% of the area median income. And that varies by the number of people who will be in the household. So for an individual, one person who will be living there, they would need to make a minimum of $32,000, $760 per year, and on the high end, $65,520 per year. For a family of 4, for instance, they would need to make between $46,800 and $93,600. Now that is for the first phase. For phase 3, the homes with that will come through Habitat, they will be for families and individuals who make 30 to 80% of the area median income. So on the low end, they would make between $16,380 per year and $43,680 per year on the high end.
That's for one person?
16,000, yeah, that's for a single person. For a family of 4, it would be 23,400 at the 30% in, and at the high of 80%, 62,400.
Those values, MISHDA does have those posted on their website, so the board could choose to, reference those if they didn't feel like the calculations. I mean, it's publicly available information of what those are.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Adam?
Thank you. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's only a lot because I've been co-chairing planning economic development when they tore Mercy down. And I want to ask you if you would take into consideration, because right now it's still a project. It just happens to be Project T. I was in a conversation with some people off and on all the time anyway, and we talk about districts. And last week, I think it was a little iffy. A lot of our children and a lot of us were born at Mercy Hospital. If in fact you will take into consideration getting that sign, that marquee sign from the Morton House and making it Mercy District, if you would take that into consideration, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, so the minimum income is actually in our master plan at $24,000. We've had these discussions, but I'm not going to stay stuck on that. Because for years, we can't go to building houses and the people within a community can't afford them because they don't have a job. So this thing, I tried to, and we're here now. We need jobs to be able to afford them. Now, I'm not going to jump in, I'll hopefully get to that, and hopefully Mr. Little will still be here. In that recent conversation that came up, to create jobs. My next question though is the same one that I think I asked before with all these calls that I've been on about decarbonization with these homes and the apartments. Are we working with the Justice 40 initiative to actually do that, to lower the cost of the electric bills and the emissions of switching over to and having nothing but electric as opposed to gas? I was on a call yesterday and they were talking about the Louisiana, I forgot what they call it, strip of where contamination and gas, they're trying to get away from gas usage because of leaks in people's homes, and they really don't know it because it's invisible and it's causing a lot of harm to people and they don't even know it. I'm just hoping that, I heard you say, has there been a revision? There will be no grocery store. I heard you say the word possibility.
Well, we don't know yet. We are actively seeking.
Okay, I know that we weren't expecting to run into contamination. And again, that was a big thing when they tore the building down with the county. Are we cleaning it up? I mean, the county was supposed to clean it up. Why are they not being responsible for this? Or playing some part? Dan Fetty, there's some funds for local. Have we checked with the county? I'm just asking.
A lot of questions.
I know. And I'm going to stop and give you an opportunity to answer some of them.
On contamination, do you want someone to speak on relationships with the county?
Well, actually, some of the dollars that the county has is for the county as a whole, which would mean this municipality too.
There are other funding sources that go into that, so maybe that would be helpful to go through as well.
I just don't think that Benton Harbor should bear the whole brunt of whatever it is, since the county would not work with us and allow us to get the property for a more reasonable price than what we paid for it. So it is what it is, and growth must take place. But we want to just work together.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have one here.
I just wanted to make one point. Fishbeck, my firm, is involved in a certain level in this project. There is no conflict of interest, but I want to disclose what our relationship is or is not in that project. So part of the project has an EAGLE, is it a grant or a loan? Grant. An EAGLE grant to help do some assessment, and does it also include cleanup work?
It will remove assessment and removal.
So Fishbeck was hired by Renovare to do some of that work under the EAGLE grant. Renovare is also working with our site development and civil engineering firm. I don't work with those departments. My role here is strictly for the Brownfield Authority here in Benton Harbor and as your technical advisor. So when we review the Brownfield plan, it's from that point of view. But I did just want to disclose that my firm is involved in some aspects of the project.
Mr. Little,
Yes,
has the city confirmed with the attorney that both of them is not in conflict? Fishback working for us and Fishback working for them. Has the city attorney, new attorney?
we have looked at that, there it is.
It's not a conflict of interest?
I guess I'd also like to mention that when our firm interviewed for this position as the Brownfield advisor, it was disclosed that we were working on Project T. I believe that was actually, I don't obviously want to speak for the board, but considered a value that we were working in the community, so that has been publicly disclosed.
So this basically grandfathered you in since you're already looking for him to go at this position. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Oh, I'm so sorry. Ms. Kanai. Commissioner.
I'd like to ask, exactly what are they asking from the Brownfield? Exactly what is asked of us?
So we will get to that when we get to the terms of the Brownfield plan. So this is just, are we supportive of the project? And then we'll get to those specifics when we get to evaluating the Brownfield plan.
Okay, one of the other things.
I like
that-
details before I start talking about support.
Yes, yes.
So I can say high level, I guess, and if we want to go there, go there, but this is a much larger project. There's significant types of funding that have gone into it that I think will be discussed here. We've worked with the city, Harbor Habitat, Renovari, Fishback has reviewed things in compliance with Act 381 for your support. And the ask of the Brownfield is a small portion compared to the project costs. There's significant private investment put in, there's significant public investment through MISTA put into this project. So what we're asking for of the Brownfield is literally just the cost of the financing gas service alone. Is that accurate?
Accurate.
The service alone to make the project move forward.
But it is significant for Brownfield. Very significant because it's contaminated. And Mr. Little, would you want to speak on that now? And see where we are, because I'm like Mr. Hudson. We gotta have all the information, see if it's true.
Can I ask this quick question before he does, because he can add this with it? Because I remember asking if in fact the attorney could come and introduce himself and to actually find out that there would not be any conflict of interest, because we ran into that once before. Thank you.
Mr. Little.
The contamination issue is associated with the Wells Street property. This is phase one, which is a portion of the 968 guard. Phase 1 and 2 both are in that parcel. But we had some concerns that we talked with them and worked out, whereby we're limiting the Brownfield involvement to phase 1, the 14 duplexes. That particular portion of 968 yard will be sectioned off with a separate property ID number itself, so that in fact the capture that is involved on this to repay the money which will repay the loan that was referred to would be restricted to that particular parcel only. Now, the loan that's being referred to is to cover some $600,000 expected to be the cost for replacing the concrete street on Weld Avenue that you may have heard some discussion some time back about, where it was determined there would have to be a number of cuts in the street, and that couldn't replace it with blacktop. They wanted it, the commission wanted it replaced with concrete. The other part has to do with some reduction in the price of some of the homes and a recapture of projected revenue that was a part of that. We're comfortable now that we've secured, we've given commitment to maximum 2.1 million to cover that total project. And with that, and the commitment that there won't be any additional brownfield requests for either phase 2 or 3.
Okay, Thank you.
One more question.
Yes,
Is there,
just a moment.
is there anything built into this
Yeah.
to ensure that a certain number of Benton Harbor residents will be prepared, and ready to purchase any of these particular properties?
Might I help with that? This was never intended to be a low-income project to begin with. That was a commitment from the beginning that Harbor Habitat itself would build several units, and you heard them refer to that on the Wells Street portion, that would be targeted directly toward lower income. Any city resident can purchase a property in here if they have the means and the desire to do so. But as far as the project itself being turned, changed, or whatever, that's not a requirement.
Well, I find that kind of, given that you're saying that this project is to address the lack of housing in the community, and the community is basically, well, not, everyone's not, I understand it's not low income, but if it's to most of those who are in need, probably couldn't afford this. So it doesn't even appear that it's for the community need, then.
Well, it is for a community need, but not in the respect that you're saying. Basically, I want to just kind of remind everyone, you heard me say this back from early on, that the city's objectives here are to rebuild its population, rebuild its tax base, rebuild, have a place for workforce housing for people who may work and be able to afford homes, to not have to go out into the surrounding area to find a home that would satisfy their needs and wants. And that's what this is about.
I'd like to ask if this property, is this property under a 501c3?
No.
Okay. Well, we need even tax out.
Okay, Teresa's ready to speak.
I wanted to make 2 points. One is just a point of clarification. We've mentioned contamination and we're talking about housing. So I want to be clear that there is contamination on this property, but there will be no unacceptable exposures to the end user. There are some due care responsibilities for the development, and that does have costs associated with it to ensure that there are no unacceptable exposures. And so the cost of those due care activities will be one of the activities that you see when we get to the Brownfield plan. But I just want to be clear, when we say there is contamination present, there will not be an unacceptable exposure to the end users. The second point I was going to mention when we got to the Brownfield plan, but I think it's helpful for some board members to understand what the ask will be. Mr. Little mentioned that the Brownfield ask will be 2.1 million. Yes, that's a sizable number, but we want to put it in context with the development for phase one specifically, because that's what we're looking at here when we get to the Brownfield ask. The level of private investment is 4.9 million. And then MISTA is also, as a public source, committing quite a bit to the project as well. I don't have that number right offhand, but the total.
2.6. What is it? About 2.6.
2.6 million. So the total
So far.
overall investment for phase one of the property will be about 8.8 million. Is that accurate?
Accurate. Yes.
And the
How
whole
much was that?
8.8 million, that's just for phase one. And that's what we're gonna be talking about for the Brownfield.
That's the whale.
That's the A garden.
Level, Mr. Commissioner,
It's right there at
Just
whale
hold
and
it.
Agar.
Yeah. He's got the floor.
Your request of 2.1 million from Brownfield, what is our current balance in terms of our funds availability?
So the way that this request would come would be in a Brownfield plan, so there would be no upfront cost by this board. It would strictly be that the tax increment only comes from the development, and by putting in this development, the taxes increase. So it would be that tax increment, it would be a reimbursement. So all the funds would be committed by the development team and their funding sources up front, and then it would be a reimbursement from this board through the tax increment.
Let me ask again, we have less than $1 million.
That's,
So there's no money that would be coming directly out
Okay.
of the checking accounts of this board.
So explain to me where we are in terms of the process.
So
It's not our money.
similar to the other brownfield plans that this board has approved and has actively working in the works, development occurs, it raises taxes, there's a development and reimbursement agreement, and as those taxes are collected, then they get deposited into the account, and then the developer will have to submit invoices, so they're only reimbursed on actual costs. They have to show proof of those costs, and then after those taxes have already been put in your account, then a check gets cut after that review of that reimbursement. Similarly, I think it was in May, wasn't it? Mark, we had several tax disbursements for existing brownfield plans. We've had a couple of reimbursement requests recently in the last couple months, so it'll be a similar process.
it's like I get my taxes
Let me-
back because I
He's
made
not
that.
finished.
I'm
That's
still trying to work this through.
Yes, right.
We got less than $1 million. Is it our approval of your plan that allows us to collect some amount that has not been previously extended up on the receipt of new tax dollars to be generated from the new assessments?
I'm not sure, are you asking about, will this board get anything from the brownfield plan?
I'm looking at our
Because you
$1 million. Where is it going? What is the return? What's the maturity on it? And those what I call details of this financial arrangement. You're talking about future taxes.
Yeah.
How do we claim any amount of that, in essence, to brownfield legislation if we have not extended?
So right now, you haven't supported the project at all. There would be no collection by this board or another entity that for the development. If they had the means to move forward without this support, there wouldn't be a mechanism for this board to collect anything.
So they want our $1 million.
Well, they need this to finance their loan, and once it's in place, this board will get an administrative and operating fee. You will also get the last 5 years of the plan goes into your LBRF, that local brownfield revolving fund, which helps create a more sustainable program for this board to support other projects. And I think that came in at roughly $600,000. That's in addition to the administration, admin and operating expenses.
Okay, let's make it simple. You want us to agree to a plan that
But
will.
we're not actually talking about the plan yet. I know they're related, but typically the application would come a couple months in advance. We'd say, yeah, we want to support it, and then we come to the plan. Yes, we have the plan in place now, but we do need to make sure we're approving the application first. Again, that allows us to capture that application fee, and then we can talk about the details of the plan.
You're speaking of Japanese to me. I don't understand the intricacies of what we're attaching to. If all we have to do is say we agree with this development, I don't think that's a problem, because our job is to help increase the assessed value of property in the city.
So the way these incentives were put in place through statute,
Mm-hmm.
the development team can't just decide they want to have a brownfield plan and they get reimbursed for their costs.
Gotcha.
It has to be administered first through the brownfield authority. You would have to recommend a plan for approval, and then it also has to be approved by the local jurisdiction, in this case, the city commission. So it ensures that there is local support for the project. So the ask of you is just that you would administer this plan, but there's no upfront cost by this board.
Which means that the city is on the hook for receiving less of the millage that is assessed when the property is occupied or developed.
So it's not actually less, but it's delayed for that future value. So I'm not sure if you were here when I did kind of my Brownfield 101 presentation, but the initial taxable value of where it is now, each of the local jurisdictions will continue to capture that same value. So nothing's getting taken away from them. There is a delayed response in that future value, which would not exist if we didn't have this development. So once we get the development, there will be a period of time that those local jurisdictions won't see that higher value while we reimburse these costs. Once those costs are reimbursed, then all the local jurisdictions will see that higher value that occurred because of the development.
I'm not so much concerned about the local jurisdictions. They all have reserve and rainy day funds. I'm concerned about the city of Benton Harbor.
So
How-
I mean like the library, the fire and rescue, whatever your millages are within the city.
I'm concerned about the revenue stream of this organization called the City of Benton Harbor and whatever affects it. I'm for no plan that cuts them out of what they legally should be receiving from tax levies. That's a basic sustenance. That's half of the problem in this town. The last 10 years, everything goes up and they gotta plow the streets, maintain the systems, but they're not getting their fair share of the money. Everybody's gotta pay their fair share. And that is my
This program
concern.
doesn't work if they don't pay their taxes. So if they didn't pay their taxes, they wouldn't get reimbursed. If the taxable value doesn't go up, they don't get reimbursed.
And we're not
And
doing
all
anything
the
now.
things have to come into play together.
I'm for this development, but I am also for the city of Benton Harbor. I gotta be sure that there is nothing here that causes them to start surrendering that which is much needed, which
So
is
I know
every
that
penny.
the mayor of Benton Harbor is supportive in general of this
We're not
project.
talking about the
I
mayor.
will not speak for him
Okay?
as far as
We're not
technical.
talking about the mayor,
The
Teresa.
technical details were worked very closely with Mr. Lewis.
That's why I want
Okay.
Mr. Little to speak to you.
If I
It's
might,
authority.
and the city had the same concerns, and we think we've worked this out to where it's mutually beneficial to all.
I don't see it here.
As was said earlier, the site has a value at present that's low because there's nothing but land there. With the development that is being put on it, there will be an increase in the taxable value. And the city, as part of the process of getting this to happen, forgoes that increase in property tax for a number of years. Alternatively, though, it gets the 25 years.
That's why we broke down.
Alternatively, it gets the additional population. It gets the income tax if they're wage earners and are living in the homes and so forth. It would get, it would have additional water customers and other benefits that accrue to the city. So, plus also, phase 2 and phase 3 are not part of that foregone situation. The tax revenues off of those two portions, the 39 apartments in the 4-story building, as well as the other homes, those you would get taxes on as soon as it is done and starts to pay taxes.
Yes.
Right now,
Yeah.
I don't see it in these schedules that you presented to me.
Gonna have to vote.
I would like to see the numbers. Let me see some net present values, something other than just talk. One of the things that this city has experienced over the last 20 years is a reduction in revenues, which has reduced the amount of city services available. Everybody coming in needs to pay their fair share.
Okay.
Now, if we can work with helping in a manner that our little money comes back to us to use again, because there was a lady here last month that wanted to do some projects. And I will say the same thing to her. We can talk about what we got, we put it out there, we talk about how we get it back. Right now, it's sitting in the bank at almost 0% interest. I'm for all of that. The city needs to think twice about continuously surrendering its lifeblood.
Thank you. Now, Adam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just go back to the time when we were on life support, going downhill and going very fast because a whole lot of land and no buildings, no jobs to attract anybody to come in and do anything. But what I have seen us actually do as leaders of this community and gatekeepers is to allow development to take place, which gave us a tax base that's steadily growing, and it looks good. I'm tired of everything being a project, like Highland projects. No, that started off as a development, a project, and then a development, and now it's housing, but they choose to call it the Jets. That's why I was talking about Mercy District. When the project is over, can we please give it a name, something historical, like Mercy District? But it's sitting there now and it's doing nothing. We need affordable housing of some sort. Our job as gatekeepers is to do exactly what I continue to do, even though I'm not an elected official. But they're jobs, and we're gonna get to that because some of them are brownfield jobs, and the funding for it is available. And I'm working with some people that's going to make it happen. But it's our job, and we play a part in it. And it's really not my job because I'm not the one getting paid. And I don't appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Vaughn?
So looking at this holistically, Vincent Harbor needs housing. And that's what this project is doing, is bringing Vincent Harbor housing. Mr. Little mentioned the water bills that so many citizens talk about how high they are. Well, if we had a higher population, maybe that could combat some of that. So we need a higher population of people. If I'm understanding this correctly, maybe phase 1 is not going to be geared towards low income, but we do have a phase 3. And she mentioned 30 to 80%. And phase 3 would be to help some low income people as well. So I don't see a negative with this project, and maybe I'm just missing something, but we're gonna enter into a brownfield agreement, a tax recapture. I don't see how this is different than any other brownfield agreement unless I'm missing something here that we enter into. So again, we need housing, we need population. I don't see the negative in this.
Thank you.
One last question, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but in this policy and procedure, it indicates that the focus is on the 80 to 100% to 120%. Is that strictly the focus of brownfield plans, or are we considering those that are at a lower AMI?
It is basically the principal focus of it. We have a housing commission that has hundreds of homes here in the community that the mayor and commission have taken steps to get them to upgrade and improve that level of housing. They're in the process right now of developing what's called a RAD with consultants to get that upgraded housing done. They are to deal with the lower income population. And as you said, those persons who may be borderline with a little help may be able to afford to just move out of there into this type of housing. That opportunity is there. But we're not trying to do all of it within this program.
Thank you.
But your first 28 units, you say, will be market rate.
Basically, as was described, yes.
Workforce housing.
60 to 20%. 60% to 120%, sir.
But I'm speaking of the pricing of the homes will be market rate.
The sales prices for the units are $161,000 for the 2-bedroom duplexes and $180,000 for the 3-bedroom units.
Okay, they should pay the fair share.
There's
Pay the
also
taxes.
a very structured homebuyer program with down payment assistance and very strategic marketing to local area employers and local residents as well.
There's quite a few of
Just a
them, I'm
moment.
sorry, going on in the community to help with that.
Anyone else have anything to say? I'd like to know timelines. Timelines, can you give me some timelines on the whole project?
It's listed.
I don't think so. It is in the,
No, it was listed.
We have gotten through all of our site plan approvals. We were able to update the plan development approval last month, and we are on track to close before September 7th. We have our lenders lined up. We are working through the final stages of engineering and our final construction documents. We have a roughly 20-month construction schedule after we start building homes. So we will be finishing in 2026. Teresa?
I just wanted to make one
You have
point
something
of,
else to say?
I just have a question. Is that the phase 1, 2, and 3 that'll be complete by 2026 or just phase 1?
Just phase one.
Packet page 40.
Okay.
All
So,
right, Ms. Adams,
So-
last
so-
time.
yeah, but this is valid because we lost a large, beautiful piece of property.
Right.
If it's not used for the purpose intended, then it reverts back. See, we're dealing with a phase 1, 2, and 3, and she just asked a very valid question. See, because it happens,
It's been addressed.
unintentionally, but it happens.
Understood.
And if those properties, if nothing else is used after phase 1, and 2 or 3 doesn't happen, that property reverts back.
I haven't seen the final purchase agreement that went through commission, but it's our understanding that language was approved and we agreed to it, that basically we will sell the property back, because we are buying the property for a price. We would sell it back to the property if we do not commence construction within a certain period of time. And I think it's 3 years, please don't quote me, because I don't have that in front of me, but that was considered by the city staff.
You guys got it for a good price, but that's not our decision, that's the commission.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Teresa, recommend.
I just wanted to make one point of clarification that if you choose to accept this application, it does not bound you to the Brownfield plan. That's a separate motion, a separate action. I know we haven't gone through all those details. We tried to provide some information here, but this first action that's needed is just accepting the project application and the associated $500 application fee.
Move to accept.
What's wrong? Just,
Motion to accept?
Yes.
Teresa, based upon what the city commission wants, what do you recommend to the board?
Point
I
of order,
recommend
there
that
was a
this board
motion,
accepts the application as it's in line with the goals of
but
the
it's
city.
on the floor.
Now, all right, there's been a motion and second.
Okay.
Now, are there any other, just a moment, wait. Are there any other questions, concerns about this motion?
Now you come up with something.
Okay, hearing none, then we're gonna roll call real fast. Roll call, Teresa, since it's so quick. Roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I have this for the minute. So we had a motion by Hudson and a second
Yes.
by Adams. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Motion by
That
Adams.
we accept this project application.
Motion.
Hudson and Adams.
You say that is our first process?
Okay, so the roll call will be Adams,
Yes.
Warren. Yes. Chandler.
Yes.
Hull.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0 to accept the project application and the $500 application fee. Okay, bear with me just a minute. Okay, so next item on the agenda is, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, Chair, if you want to introduce that.
All this, is that your business?
Yes.
Okay. Brownfield housing incentive.
Project T.
Yes, So now we are on, new business, the VRA Housing Incentive Evaluation Policies and Procedures. This board instructed me to work with Mr. Little to make sure that, one, we had a framework to evaluate these types of projects, that they're new and a little bit different than other brownfield projects. And, well, yeah, that's the framework. So essentially, Mr. Little and myself worked with this, made sure it was in line with statute and city goals. And so I am presenting one change to you. This is called the City of Benton Harbor Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Housing Incentive Evaluation Policy and Procedures in your packet. I'm proposing we also add the terminology policy and procedure guidelines. And the reason for that is this is a framework. This gives you a basis of how you evaluate these projects, especially now as this is new with new amendments. But it implies that it does allow some flexibility. You know, as the years go on, this board will see, well, what projects worked, what didn't. And so if we add that guideline, it just reminds you that you have a little bit of flexibility. Would you like me to go through this policy?
I'd like to see where the
Just a
writing
moment.
was.
We're gonna have to wait till you get recognized by the chair.
She asked the question, Chair.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
now,
you have the floor.
you just,
You have the floor.
okay. Is that information in this packet that I have in front of me, Teresa?
Absolutely. It is pages 25 and 26.
I didn't notice it. Email.
He has still has the floor.
Okay,
Everybody has to wait till the other one gets through. You can't all talk at one time. All right, you still have the floor.
no, move on.
Okay, you finished? All right, now,
It was just a question as to if this was emailed in our packet, but I don't remember seeing it. But
Yes.
It was.
okay, thank you.
So then that means we would have some flexibility in considering those projects that are lower than the 80 to 120% AMI? We see a little flexibility.
Although specifically the brownfield incentives, many of them are targeted to that 80 to 120. So if it was lower than that, some of those may not apply.
Is that the legal language of the
Yes, so
381 Act that it,
there's certain, not everything, but certain housing development activities are restricted to the 80 to 120. Essentially, we're trying to address that missing middle, that there haven't really been good programs to support. We've had some programs to support low income, market rate usually can make it work, the math works for the developers, those people at those incomes are able to afford housing. So essentially, it's that missing middle where as construction costs have gone up, the math doesn't work for the developers, so they don't want to do these. And as inflation has gone up, that, you know, our teachers, our firefighters, those types of industries are struggling being able to find housing. So a lot of these incentives are geared to that 80 to 120.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to re-emphasize that, again, much earlier when I kind of outlined to you the city's economic development strategy. This is one tool out of many that are being used to try to deal with our economic development and specifically our housing situation. This tool is not targeted toward low-income development. This is to address workforce housing and again, we're trying to rebuild the population in the city. We're trying to rebuild the city's tax base and fill out a lot of this empty space that we have in the city. Again, the Housing Commission has hundreds of houses. Many of them are sitting vacant right now. And we're trying to get those, there will be adequate housing for the low-income population and still the ability for those that can rise above that to come into this if they meet the requirements. So we're not going to be working toward trying to push toward low-income housing through this brownfield mechanism.
Sam?
Thank you. Define workforce housing.
80 to 120% area median income.
Okay, my mind is stuck on trains. So, okay, don't pay me any mind with that.
It's also sometimes referred to as the missing middle.
Okay. So, we're talking about houses that we taking off the tax roll.
Actually, we're talking about housing that
Housing
people who
period.
are working in are able to pay the
Exactly.
notes, pay the rent,
Right,
pay the
right.
maintenance, the
Right,
taxes.
okay.
So if I can kind of go through this policy and then we can,
Okay.
kind of talk about any questions that arise. So within these guidelines, I started with just taking your mission statement straight from your bylaws as a reminder of what this board historically does and how you operate, and then now we're framing it with respect to housing. So first and foremost, we want to make sure any project that comes before this board for support is in line with city goals, city ordinances, city zoning. So this establishes that one, it needs to be in line with the city's master plan. We need to make sure there is a need for housing and that they've met with the code official so that we understand that there aren't, something that they want to put in place that the city would then later say, no, that's going to be denied because it doesn't align with our ordinances. So that would kind of be the first step. We have a minimum of 4 residential units. So by statute, you can have as little as 1, but does that really help you meet your goal? Essentially, some of these metrics make sure that we have a sizable enough project that it's going to make sense for a brownfield plan to work, which all of them are going to have to be evaluated individually. The math's going to have to work, but it just provides some reasonable parameters. What this board, I imagine, does not want to see is every single resident come in and say, put my house in a brownfield plan. There's a lot of good work happening in the community, and not every project should be evaluated through brownfield tools. As Mr. Little alluded to, this is one tool in the toolbox. There are other programs. So in order to provide some skin in the game, as we say it, we're not in the business, you as an authority are not in the business of fully funding development projects. You are here to assist, work through, applying for grants and loans or administering brownfield plans. And so this has a minimum of 20% equity should be put into the project above what they're seeking for reimbursement. Projects wanting to see things are actually moving forward, so most of these would occur between 12 and 18 months. We don't want to support any projects that are undergoing legal proceedings, so we want to make that clear. And then the authority can also check with the county on liens. And then, as we've already kind of talked about, this program specifically is geared towards that workforce housing and the 80 to 120% AMI. There are other programs that support that, but that'll be the main focus. It doesn't mean that you can't support projects outside of that, but that's kind of the target. And that the primary tool, which is consistent with how this board has historically supported projects, is through a local-only brownfield plan. Again, that's not your only choice, but that's kind of your default mechanism of support. You do have the ability to choose other methods of support and or the use of state sources if it makes sense for the right project. And then this next part kind of gets into the procedures, which is essentially they would contact me for that project application. I can have that first conversation with them, and if it doesn't sound like it's aligned with the things you can support, then maybe they don't spend their time filling it out. But if it sounds like it has some merit, they can fill out that application. They can go before this board to consider whether you want to support, including that $500 application fee. Again, this is just for that initial support. Once we got to a brownfield plan, that would be down the line. So this is that framework. Any questions on that?
I do.
Mr. Hudson?
We had a lady that was here last month, and I think that is her
Yeah, her
city.
project is on the agenda, is she here? Oh, yeah, so that project we will talk about.
Well, let me finish my question. Based upon your information and general knowledge of her, is there anything in this policy that exempts or makes Brownfield assistance to her unattainable?
No.
Okay.
Next, any other questions?
So the fact that it says here, housing projects should contain minimum of 4 residential units
She has more than, I think, her project.
that are, okay, what if somebody only has 2?
Well, then that doesn't align with this framework. So could you
Framework.
evaluate it and assess it, but also if you wanted to try to put that in a brownfield plan, it's not likely gonna create enough tax increment to make the math work.
Okay.
So that's
it is
also what some
feasibility.
of these things kind of help gear towards.
Okay.
It's not a guarantee that the math will work. We'll always need to work with the assessor to kind of establish that anticipated tax increment, but.
So it's the threshold that we have to be aware of. Okay. Makes sense.
Is that it, Ms. Hudson?
That's it for me, other than this next to last bullet point on page 25, which is need for workforce housing, 80 to 120%. Looks like we're still punching below our weight. We keep talking about median or median. You got to shoot at a 3-pointer or you're never going to hit it. Okay, I never hit one I didn't shoot at. Why aren't we shooting at something other than these low-hanging pieces of fruit? I see development all around here within 2 miles. That is not 120% of median. So it's like we pushing, it puts more stress on an already exacerbated tax millage that the city has. It's just like we got a number of things working against themselves here. And we can do whatever this body sees fit. And Mr. Little can speak to it if he wants to. Let's go after some of that gravy too. It looks like we're just setting ourselves up to be supporting those who have not.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Little?
I certainly don't disagree, and I think where we could solve that by just simply saying or above.
Yes.
Okay? I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying you don't want it limited to that 120?
That's right.
No.
Right.
So
Just a moment, let her finish.
do we feel like the way that it's written here limits that? Because we have that guidelines. Is this board more comfortable that the focus will be that 80 to 120 or above? Some of the brownfield incentives may not apply if it's above that, but.
Well, then we should deal with that at that point. I just don't like always going at, I mean, we're talking about servicing a group that are, let's face it, financially challenged to a degree. I mean, come on, let's get some of that gravy, or we should have some vantage point for theirs and other existence too. Why are we always just shooting at low income?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Hudson, but I do want to say this. This project is for mixed use. The whole project is going to be low income, it's going to be some that can afford, some that can't. We just don't have low income people living in our community. The housing authority, we built lots and lots of houses. The mayor and commissioner, they have been working very hard to bring in new housing and affordable housing for low income people. And I agree with Mr. Hudson. We're here to spur development. There's no doubt about that. But also, we have other people living in our community that's not low income. And we want to address those issues too. So we do have a track form where we do low income, and it's a 3-phase to this. So we're going to do the first phase, then we're coming to the second phase, and we hope that these will work. But there's a timeline, and we want developers to come to the table so that we can get this project off the docket. And we appreciate that. And above, mixed use, and the word he said above, was kind of like first.
So if we add that word above, are you okay if I add another sentence that says some brownfield incentives may not apply above
Yes.
120?
If we don't have enough.
Well, that will within itself
Yes,
express itself as you're in the program.
right.
So I don't really see, what that's necessary. If it doesn't apply, then we can't do
That's
it.
right. Okay, thank you. Teresa?
So if,
Do we have?
make sure I'm understanding, if this board chooses to take a motion, it would be amending this to add the word guidelines, to add the word and above after the 80 to 120 in that second to last bullet point, and then a sentence that some brownfield incentives may not apply above 120. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's not.
Because you're saying that there are some leeway in Act 381 where we could be above 120? Is that what I'm understanding? Because if you're saying Act 381 is focusing on 80 to 120, what's the point of above? I guess I might have missed something.
And that stays within the guidelines.
Because we have to be within the guidelines, so I'm.
Right, so there's certain categories. So if I say a housing, if I'm gonna rehab, housing, and you're above that, you may not qualify for some of that rehab. Because you have a site prep cost that might qualify,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. If everyone thinks we should put above in there, go for it, but it sounds like it's a lot of, if you're above it, you may not qualify for a lot of it, so is there really a point? Unless we're feeling like, I don't know, I don't think above is needed, but I'm not gonna rock the boat if that's what everybody feels that it's needed, then.
Well, what's your recommendation?
We just don't want to limit, I think.
Yeah, we
Ms.
just don't want to
Santana,
limit it.
which is what
Okay.
you're saying.
I'm just saying.
Because we
have
just
to
put
follow the
$100,000
guidelines.
into the
Okay,
project here on Wall Street. Under these regulations, I don't know if that would have been possible.
What's
So
your
let's keep it
recommendation?
broad.
Just keep it as is, please.
My recommendation would be to keep it as is,
Okay,
because
keep
it
it as
mentions
is.
this is the target, and it does apply to more of these incentives.
Okay, fine, let's move forward with it.
excuse me.
All right. Go ahead. Your hands up.
Oh, okay. Are we talking about just home ownership?
Housing incentive policy.
Oh, the housing incentive
Yes.
itself?
Yeah.
Okay, but, I heard Commissioner Warren mention that low or above.
No, we're not doing that now. Stop.
Okay, I'll catch up later.
All right.
And that will all look the vote.
We should have a wrong,
No, I'll be fine.
Okay.
Anything can always be revised.
Okay.
Ready for the vote?
I don't think we have official motions
We
on the
need a
floor
motion.
yet.
To approve.
Have we seen the final draft? I think,
This is our number, business, number.
I like to vote on something in front of me,
A
not a
motion.
draft.
We need a
It
motion.
is in front of you. It's a draft because you haven't voted on it.
Oh, okay,
Then
well,
once you vote on it, any amendments that we make, then it would become. Right now, the only amendment is the word guide.
Teresa, we need a motion on what? Say.
A motion to support the, what's the actual name?
Yes. So everybody can-
The City of Benton Harbor Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Housing Incentive Evaluation Policy and Procedure Guidelines.
Yes. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
We need a motion.
nobody likes it?
We need a motion.
Commissioner Adams had a motion.
Yeah, we need a second. Motion and second. Clark, Adams and Clark. Adams motion. Now, are there any more discussions, questions, concerns?
One
on the
point.
motion?
I'm under the understanding that the
Mr.
things that
Hudson?
we discussed,
Mr. Hudson?
yes, I'm under the understanding the things that we discussed will be added to, and we will see it in form and content.
Yeah, the only change was the word guidelines. But yes, I can supply that finalized version next month.
Great.
Thank you. All right, now, you have a question, but you're gonna come forward and talk. Yeah.
The contract.
On the next.
On the.
Yes. All right, we have a motion on the floor, roll call.
Adams?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Chandler?
Yes.
Hull?
Yes,
Clark?
Yes.
Kennard?
thank you.
Hudson?
Yes.
Now, he talked about what the lady here, the she gonna come forward with the project?
Well, I don't think that's next on the agenda.
No, I said, what is next?
So next
She wants to
is,
have something to say, but she can do it when she comes forward.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
next we have the Project T Brownfield plan, and I'll have the, development team present that, but I did just kind of want to mention a couple of quick facts. First of all, the plan is in your packet. It is pages 27 through 45. So, while we just talked about housing, about evaluating housing projects, and this is a mixed-use, largely housing project, this is not a housing brownfield plan. It is determined to be eligible property based on its facility status, essentially that contamination. All of the activities that are put in here for reimbursement are those traditional brownfield activities. There are additional costs above and beyond that could have been included, and they are not. So this was worked with the city to make sure, as Mr. Little alluded to earlier, it ends up being a win-win, so that this project moves forward. It has the goals of the city. It has some things in place that benefit the authority as well. So I'll let the project team.
Is this the same one?
Yes. Says you right there.
Good afternoon. My name is Jill Ferrari. I am one of the majority owners of Redevelopment. I'm here with my partner Shannon Morgan to walk through the elements of the Brownfield plan. I passed my first Brownfield plan in 1997. I helped Macomb County set up their Brownfield Authority, Grand Traverse County, the city of Detroit. I've written over 100 Brownfield plans in the state of Michigan. This is my area of work. So I'm very excited to be here today and hopefully answer all the technical questions you have on the project. High level, we are seeking a local only brownfield plan for just phase 1 of the development. This includes the 28 units. That means the mixed use building with that 12,000 square feet of commercial space, the 39 rental units, and on phase 3, the rest of the single family units will not be included in the plan. That means any environmental activities on those 2 phases will have to be paid for by other sources, and we will not be capturing those taxes under this plan. The total eligible activities that we're seeking reimbursement for is 2.190447, about 2.2 million, and include environmental activities. When the Mercy Hospital was demolished, the fill that they brought back in to compact the site does not meet current standards under the environmental regulations in the state of Michigan. We are seeing this on our other sites around the state. This is just, it's called urban fill, and it's an issue that the state's dealing with. There's metals and other contaminants in the fill that came back after demolition. So that's our primary concern for the site. We will be seeking a private loan to finance the eligible activities in the plan, and it takes the amount of the loan and interest in order to repay the loan over time. So that's why we need the full 2.1 million, but the amount of the loan that we're seeking is roughly 1.2 million in proceeds that will actually go into the project. And I think I've already mentioned that phase 2 and 3 will not be able to seek any additional TIF reimbursement. That was definitely Mr. Little's insistence that, we balance the impact, the fiscal impact on the city of Benton Harbor. This is the timeline. We mentioned this previously. We're hoping to close by September 7th. We need to close by September 7th. We'll be beginning site work immediately and begin new construction of the first units the beginning of next year. We do the site work for a few months in between. And I'm here to answer any questions, and the rest of our team is here to answer questions as well.
So my question goes back to the county. They were so insistent on not tearing it down and not allowing us to, utilize it, just like you see all these other beautiful old building being restored. Anyway, being what it is, they are the ones that brought that contaminated soil in and dumped it. They used a whole lot of our water, and I don't think we ever got any money for that. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we paid $250,000 for it, buyback from the county, and now we're left with this. And I was raising havoc then to keep from getting to the point of where we are right now. Because I was an elected official, and I remember talking to you young ladies, and my specific question was, will you be needing the Brownfield authority for anything? And your answer was no. And I'm sure you didn't think so at that time. Because these are things that you just ran into, are they not?
They are, but I thought when we were at the house of community engagement.
No, I saw
session-
you all prior to all that. I saw you years ago as
Because we did have
when you
during
came
the,
before Plan Economic Development originally.
I don't remember saying no then, but I do remember discussing coming to the BRA at the community engagement session in the fall, because we knew about that.
I mean, it is what it is, and we're here now. And there's federal funds available. Will you be seeking those funds to help just clean up? Because I believe in accountability, holding people accountable. And the county of Marion needs to be held accountable for helping with this cleanup. It shouldn't just be all on Benton Harbor.
So I will say that Eagle has been at the table over the past year. They
Yeah,
have paid for site assessment, and we're applying for additional funds. In our current capital stack, if we can get everything approved, we can close. I am happy to go to the county and seek additional funds. If we receive funds for work that is covered in this plan, then we will remove it from the plan, or we won't seek reimbursement. But happy to have that conversation, but I don't want to slow down closing.
and I don't want you to either, but I'm just saying, go talk to Mr. Fay. Sure. And ask him to chip in wherever he can.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
any grants that we receive that pay for items that are listed in the plan will not reimburse sales taxes. We will take
I
that
just
out.
had to be aware of, there's some big money. There's some big money that a lot of organizations and local units of government in underserved communities are eligible for. And I think I heard you say something about one of the projects is 8 million.
The first phase is
The
about
phase.
And I think I remember the overall project.
about 26 million, 27
Okay,
million.
because I know that that's what was gotten, I think it was 28 million for the whole flats through the strategic funds of the state of Michigan. And I think I asked that question as well, because I was trying to figure out why the city of Benton Harbor could just go after those funds themselves and do a development. But here we are, and I'm just hoping though that we can draw everybody in that needs to help fix what's broken so we can continue to move forward.
Mr. Hunt, did you have your hand?
Same questions.
Okay.
What do you want? Do we have enough to give you? How do we get it back?
So let's go through some of the numbers. This is essentially the eligible activities that will be seeking reimbursement in this plan. So there's a baseline environmental assessment activities. Those are kind of those due diligence free activities, liability
Page 40.
protection documentations.
Page 40,
Yes, page
Okay.
40.
we go to the bottom.
We've got due care activities that are, related to that contamination, but making sure we don't have that unacceptable exposure. So all the soil and any other site conditions are managed appropriately. There's some site demolition and public infrastructure costs. Am I correct that some of these were at the request of the city? Correct. Where do you want to go with the road number? So the road number, it sounds like that was a request of the city, that cost, and some site preparation, earthwork and grading.
Okay, mill 9.
So there's a 15% contingency on any costs not incurred, 20,000 in here for brownfield plan preparation, and then 10,000 for implementation. So anything that we need to make the project or implement the plan, that could be covered either through the authority or the developer, tracking of the TIF, seeking reimbursement, all the ins and outs. There is also, so this is essentially, most of this is the developer's costs, but in addition, in these tables, so I'm now moving on to table, or page 42 and 43. This is showing some capture. We're starting with year 25. It shows all the millages. If I look at page 43, we have this going out to about 28 years, and there's a max capture for the developer of that 2.1 million. That exact number was the 2.1919, whatever that is. But essentially, to help this authority become more sustainable, there is that 5 years of capture into your LVRF at the end.
After.
So if I move on to tables on 44 and 45, this is a local only plan. This shows the developer's reimbursement starting at that 2.1. We'll go through the years. If you look at page 45, it shows that the authority is estimated to capture almost 63,000 for your administrative costs, and that number into the LVRF is the 607,999.
How much are you looking for from us?
Nothing. It's just administering the Brownfield plan. So the action that's requested today is recommending the plan for approval, which, if approved, would be formally adopted through the city commission.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It must be my bipolarism.
All right, it is.
Kicking in. Yeah. Because my comprehensive level isn't like all of the people, smart people with degrees, okay? So from my understanding, the only thing that we need to do is approve this so that they can recapture any of their tax development dollars spent for reimbursement.
Correct. So there's no upfront costs.
Exactly.
If they don't move forward with development, there's no tax increment.
And
It's also their,
act-
these are estimates. They will have to show proof of payment. They'll have to show invoices. So they will only be reimbursed on actual costs. And if the tax increment isn't there, then there's nothing to pay them back. There's nothing that, would come out of your account. It's only
Right.
through that tax increment
We
created
pay,
on
just
actual
like the development agreements that we
Yes.
work with every month, and we sign back what they spent on their developing of their projects.
Thank you.
Move to accept, I mean,
Yeah, Mrs. Stewart, you have anything you want to say?
Call the question,
We have a roll call.
make a motion to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We have.
I move,
Hudson had a motion.
yeah. It's in agreement with what the city wants to do.
Okay,
That's
support.
fine. Let's go.
Adams.
Yes.
Warren. Yes. Poe.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Motion carries 6-0.
Is there another phase?
Two more.
So essentially, this board just recommended the plan for approval, so it'll now go before the city.
I did.
Will they go forward to the city commission next meeting?
No.
So they need to have a 10-day notification and public hearing. So here's this proposed timeline that the development team put together. It looks like you were looking at July, but we'll have to have those conversations with the city.
Just make it go before the commission.
Just a
Mr.
moment,
Clark,
just a moment. Just a moment.
procedurally, the next step will be to go before one of the city's committees.
Right.
Usually the legislative committee, and then it will be moved up, if they so choose, it'll be moved up to the commission's agenda.
The recommendation will come out of the legislative committee to the city commission. Thank you. Anything? Teresa, next item.
So the next item on the agenda is the Kingsport housing redevelopment. I will ask Ms. King to come up. So last month, this board chose to accept her project application. We deposited the associated $500 application fee. Essentially what that step was yes,
this project has merit, we want to evaluate supporting this project. No level of support was determined at that time, and that's because, well, at least partially, these housing projects are new. So now we have that framework of how we evaluate those. This would be strictly a housing brownfield plan, if that's what's considered. There's no other basis of eligibility that I'm aware of. So Member Hudson had asked for schedules and costs. Ms. King has put those together. She also furnished these very nice project renderings that her development team put together. She can speak to, which properties these are for. She also submitted costs for each project, and then as a late addition, so it's not in your printed packet, but you did receive it via email, was this proposed project timeline.
Ms. King? Are you familiar with this project?
Yes. So I just want to say hello, everyone.
Oh, howdy. Good.
We was here last month and was asked to have some pictures along with some numbers to present to the city as well where we are at and with our project. And so today I'm here with pictures and some numbers and to talk a little bit more about the projects that we have. So.
You mind if I could? Or no, grab that.
Whatever you want.
Okay, perfect. We'll get gotten down to the nitty gritties and to some of the numbers. So the current project that we have going on with the Kings would be 705 East High Street. That's a current 4-unit development project that we're working on with the Kings. The development hasn't been rented out to normal residents of Benton Harbor for about 10 years now. So it's completely dilapidated. We put on a new roof, we painted all the windows, all the doors, we put on new siding, as well as did extensive framing and reframing of broken joists. We worked in partnership with the code enforcement officers here in Benton Harbor, so we're permitted, licensed, everything for that project. To kind of get to the numbers, on the left side here, you'll see all the actual costs of the numbers. And on my diagram, on my breakdown, the green is what the Kings have paid us out of pocket already. So you can see that they have significant investment into these projects. These aren't just houses that they've grabbed and then they're not actually actively pouring money into. So currently, the overall cost to redevelop those 4 units were around $92,000. The Kings have invested $62,000 in terms of that investment cost, so they're only about $30,000 off. And that's not including the actual acquisition costs for any of these buildings or units that they're currently working on. And so we wanted to kind of show you guys and kind of highlight one of the projects that we're excited about and that we think currently falls within the Brownfield development. As it's currently been used before by other people, and that would be the.
Excuse me, please be interrupted. Could you speak more into the mic? I believe these sessions are going out to the public.
Okay, perfect. What we want to kind of bring light to is the 8 units that we're going to have on
362 high and 368.
362 and 368 high, and these are those renderings here.
Where's that at?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
So this is page 47 of your packet.
And what's that address there, 362 East?
362 high and
High.
yes, and 368 high.
Yeah.
They like high street.
Oh, yeah.
Is that on here? Is that the one? It's page 47.
Oh, for
Oh,
the-
as
for
far
the
as the
I don't see
law.
the schedule. 47 was a pictorial rendering, visual.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 8 bedrooms, 2 bed, 1 bath, yeah. So this high project we're pretty excited about, because these units haven't been in real circulation in quite a while. We're planning on doing a full gut and renovation of these units. They have extensive mold damage on most of the units. And that's why we feel like they kind of qualify for what is currently along the lines of the Brownfield development in terms of helping out with mold remediation and getting blighted projects back up into the community and back into its tax base. So these projects, we're looking to go extremely high end with them. So it'll be completely renovated siding, new windows, new insulation, a new roof, new electrical throughout, new plumbing throughout, as well as on these renderings, we don't have them, but the way that these projects are structured, they're right across from each other, and it's kind of like a courtyard type setting, and so you can see in the rendering, there's actually a Jeep in the picture. So where the Jeep is, that's actually, we plan on having like a common courtyard, and then these units would all be fenced off as well, so each unit would have a key fob, and that's how they would get into the actual development, would be with that key fob. So their cars would be out into a lock gate. So it'd be a very secure community. What we like about it the most is that we feel like it gives the most impact back to the city in terms of there's 8 of these units. All 8 of these units are 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And they're not small units. They're all about 800 to 1,000 square feet. So you're not getting like a shoebox to live in with a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. You're really getting a very, very nice kind of unit to live in. Each of these units will have their own porch, you know what I'm saying? Each of these units will have their own porch, their own parking spot, trash cans, the whole 9 yards. And we would, of course, be the ones that remove all like the snow and everything like that. It would be almost like we're not gearing towards an HOA, but hopefully kind of with that in mind. With these units. So those are the first 2 pictures of the unit, and then I think so this kind of gives a little bit better kind of look for what we're planning on doing with them, without all the trees on the side, on the side. But that's exactly how we're envisioning them looking, with that common space in between. The only thing that this doesn't show on the rendering would be privacy fences in the front and the back of the unit to just add security. But these would be market rate housing developments for the city of Benton Harbor, and it's just quite literally right here on this hill, right? I think we all know it as like Morton Hill, so but that's where these units would be at. So any questions?
What do you need from us?
Ms. Hudson?
What do you need from us specifically in order to make this project work? Because we're looking at the draft procedure that once it moves past there, I say let it go. So what amounts? Because, I mean, you're saying it's a 92-156 project, you got 62, what are you looking for? Financing for the 30 gap? Are you looking for reimbursement?
So two things that we'd be looking for. If the 705 East High project, if that would qualify for Brownfield, we would of course love to get reimbursement on those costs so that we could then roll that reimbursed cost into the other High Street projects. Currently, the projects that we just showed you, we're looking at a build-out budget of about $260,000. The Kings have about $80,000 of that $260,000. And so that's what we're looking to figure out, how we can bridge that gap with the Brownfield development on those next 8-unit apartments, opposed to us like kind of moving on to another project that is maybe a single family unit, doesn't really kind of help with this, if that makes sense.
So you want 2 things. Number 1, you want us to extend you some credit for development, final development of the property. then you also want us to approve a plan to allow you to get reimbursed for accrued expenses that are eligible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Teresa?
I have to come back to numbers. Because I'm like, what are those numbers?
Yeah, 100%. And I think in your pack, I don't know what page the numbers are on in the packet, but it looks like page 50 would be the breakdown of all of our numbers for the King's current projects.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Teresa?
So I'll just remind you that the guidelines for evaluating the housing property that you just approved says, that primary tool you'll evaluate will be that local only brownfield plan. It's one thing to say, what are your eligible costs, which I think most of these would be eligible costs. The other thing is, what does that tax increment look like? And we don't really have a basis to know that yet because we haven't had these housing redevelopment plans. So what I would recommend is that this board, if you're thinking you would like to support a brownfield plan, would be to authorize me to work with the city assessor so we can determine what the anticipated future taxable value is. And I can run some TIF modeling to say, does the math make sense to reimburse for these eligible costs?
Question.
Ms. Hudson still has the floor.
When you say approve you working with the assessor, are you an assessor?
No, I am not an assessor. I would work with the city assessor. That would be the primary way that we would try to anticipate what that future taxable value might be.
So basically, the building committee is going to carry the numbers that they have given. If he is going to do an assessment and a takeoff based upon whatever variables, that's his business. Has nothing to do with us.
Well, most communities would rely very heavily on the professional input of the city assessor.
Exactly.
We can take half of the construction costs and try and guess, but it's gonna be much more accurate if we're working with a city assessor that is used to evaluating properties in your community.
Well, no. I'm not saying put him out. I'm saying that it's his responsibility. That's his area of responsibility. They are going to submit and have already submitted and received a building permit which shows numbers. He has to start at that base. He can't assess something for less than what they're saying they're putting in it, okay? So everything goes up from there if he has some little tweaking that he wants to do or what have you, in terms of maybe some local, what do they call it? You go through equalize or what have you. He can do that, but if they're putting monies out, it fits in with what Mr. Little says. The city is going to be now collecting revenue at the city's millage rate. I don't see how we lose.
So the assessor, yes, you're right, that's their job to kind of do that. But it's not their job outside of a brownfield plan to evaluate what it might be down the road. And so it's one thing to say we want to put a plan in place, but it makes sense to do the math. Does the numbers?
Yeah, I'm saying, but how do you know what's going to be happening down the road? Everybody's got a calculator.
Well, I would trust the professional opinion of the assessor. And
That's
if
right.
it's an estimate, that's what a brownfield plan is. But if this board wants to support these costs, it would be responsible to do some due diligence to understand what that likely tax increment is. I mean, it's gonna be dependent on market rate and actual taxable values at that time, but there is a reasonableness of doing some due diligence to understand what we estimate that future taxable value to be.
Okay, in the interest of time, let us move on, but when you get a building.
Can we
permit-
ask a question? You want to move on?
Yeah, no, I'm saying, that's enough for me, because I'm still.
Ms. Adams?
No, I'll wait. Ms. Long is next.
Okay, I didn't see, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I want to get something cleared up, because I know we're specifically right now talking about what's on High Street, but when you write the plan, it'll be for the entire project, right? Okay. So that's what I was under the impression. And then, Teresa, maybe you can answer this question, because what's in green has already been paid for, so that would be prior to the brownfield plan even being approved, because we don't have a brownfield plan. So would that be something that we could talk about, what's being done prior to the brownfield plan?
It's my understanding that it still could be eligible if we're using local sources. I think you've heard of that.
Okay. I think that's my two questions. So prior, you're saying yes, and this entire, everything will be in one plan.
I anticipate that the math wouldn't work out if we didn't include multiple ones, but I can try to, figure out some different scenarios if that seems like it's gonna make sense.
And our overall plan is to tackle the 4 units first, to add the 4 unit that we're currently working on 705 East High, and then to tackle, the 8 units and then the Colfax property to add the most tax base we can back as quickly as we can, and then do the single family homes like kind of after those things. Because just as, it's got, my grandpa will always say it's gotta, in order to make sense, in order to make dollars, it's gotta make sense. And so with that thing, we're incentivized that we finish as many units as we possibly can first. And the Kings are not buying the prettiest houses by any means. Me and my team are looking at them like, we could have got a better one for just a little bit more money, but they're really, really invested into seeing, Benton Harbor change in a way that is a community way. They're lifelong residents of Benton Harbor, so the men and women who are in the city are, people they've grown up with. So we're not trying to displace anyone. We're not trying to come in and build $1 million house or anything like that. We're really trying to work closely with the community and give people a place to stay, so they don't have to move out of our community.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore.
The houses here on I live right around the corner, on the corner when he was built, and they really are nice. They were nice, and it looks like they're going to be nice again.
Yeah.
Are these going to be for sale?
No.
They're not for sale.
No, they're going to
So
just
the
be rented.
property owner would be responsible for the taxes.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think I made a statement about it, yesterday, day before I ran into, our property taxes have gone up, but that's on us as property owners, and that's just the way it is, and we have to accept that. But I fully understand that if they've spent funds already and they have those receipts that they can recapture what they've spent.
If it's in an approved
Mhm.
brownfield.
Approved, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and it's for everything that's within the brownfield plan. So that's understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Teresa? Mr. King?
So we do have some additional rendering. And that rendering right there, sorry, that's not in the city, but that is a rendering that we're another property that we have that.
Yeah.
This is in a township. That was in a township. But
Yeah,
that
we're
one
not
right there,
interested in that.
that's in 1064 Ogden
Yeah.
property.
Yeah,
right there.
no problem. I think we should help you however we can. If you're talking about putting some property back on the tax roll at a higher value than it is currently, that is in our ballpark.
Yeah.
So,
For the purposes of the brownfield plan, we would only include properties in the city.
yeah, so that's why I say, we don't need to see that. Let's get
Yeah,
you
so we
going,
just-
let's get something going here in the
Just
city.
wanted to see.
I think we're-
Right, for this one?
That's 1064 Ogden.
Oh, this one too?
That's 1064, the one previous, it's not, it's in the, that's in the township.
Oh, okay. Yes, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Let's finish. As soon as she
Are
gets.
we waiting for a motion?
Next.
Are we waiting for a motion?
Now, she will have something to say.
Oh.
I mean, if they're going over each one, then that's fine.
Okay,
Well, they said they were only interested in one.
Teresa,
So the last project we have that was on your list, just so that you guys can connect each rendering to each thing, is the, what's the address? 536 Colfax, and then that would be the front of the house, and then this would be the back of that.
Didn't she last month say that this piece of property was,
It's in the courts.
okay, so, but that'll come out,
That's
because she
fine.
has it in her plan to do the due diligence. Teresa already covered that.
And you know,
Did you want to bring her?
No, we don't need to discuss it. No.
If I may.
Just a moment. Teresa, what are you saying?
She'll do it.
Ms. King had mentioned to me that she would bring documentation with her, that spoke to the status of ownership of this property.
Oh, but you don't have that as.
No, we do, she has the information.
And it's part of that.
Is it part of the package? But I do
Well,
that.
I didn't put it in the package largely because I want to be careful about this is all publicly disclosed information. We had a discussion that she would have it here if anyone wants to take a look at it.
Okay.
There's nothing about property that's private, it's all public.
Too, if you like to look
All
at
right, so what does she have on that property? You can speak to that so we can move forward.
Yeah, so I kind of speak to it and then you guys can look at each party's documentation.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest way to do that. So it's currently, hasn't been lived in a number of years. So our plan is to turn it into a 5-unit, apartment building. And with that being geared towards higher end, studio and efficiency apartments, some 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but primarily would be high-end efficiency units. The first rendering was the front of the house, and then the second rendering is the back of the house here. There'll be a deck on the back of the house, above it, and then there'll be 2 units on the top, 2 units on the bottom, and then 1 unit underneath on the basement level. And so we would do a new garage, we would do new pavement, new patios, the whole 9 yards for that house. And that would be a complete gut and renovation as well.
And that's-
Mr. Little,
Yes,
do they have the code on that with the space and all, with doing those flat rooms there?
there
Have they met
will-
the city code?
Yes, there will be with all of them. That will have to be reviewed by the code enforcement office.
Yes. Okay.
I think
And
currently it's
inspector.
a 3 or 4 unit now. I think on the city, a 3 unit now. So we'd be adding 2 additional units with that. But I spoke with Todd and he's kind of on board once we get to that level.
If it's a 5-unit, it comes under the Michigan Building Code. You're gonna have to provide the plans and everything to the inspection department for the permit. I think that all comes out in the wash.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And we have an architect on
Yeah,
staff.
so-
All of those things.
Okay.
Excuse me,
All right,
and I'm going to say it just one last time.
please.
This property right here is in the courts. It's in litigation. And I need to get in to have it appraised. Now, if somebody has been doing some work, that's on them. But there's a string of documentation that's following this. And the sale of it is part of it because it was done illegally. And that's all I got to say. And I just think that it needs to be removed for now because it'll be taken care of real soon. I don't understand what all of the rush is because it just happened within a month.
It's not a rush, we bought. it.
Okay, but I was trying
Again,
to ask
I don't
you.
think that we are a court of legal
Just a moment,
jurisdiction here.
just a moment.
So,
Ms. King, you asked for the ownership or the
Yeah,
buying
she's
it
gonna
in.
do the due diligence.
So she has to do
We
what she
have,
has
we
to
have
do.
the title work here.
Yeah,
Hey,
okay,
let's get-
so that's, Teresa? Okay. And,
Did we just submit that to Teresa?
Yes.
and then you know, everything's up legal for that, what she has to have to get the
Correct.
capture and the reimbursement.
so, sorry, I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, go ahead.
My recommendation would be that this board would authorize me to work with the city
Absolutely.
assessor to estimate that future taxable value, do some tax increment modeling so we can understand the feasibility of a brownfield plan. And as part of that, we can have those conversations with the city code officials to make sure all those plans are in line before we would be coming forward with the official brownfield plan.
A motion. We need a
So
motion.
move.
Second. The motion second now. Are there any other questions or concerns here and there?
Yes.
Okay, where is it? Mr. Hudson? Commissioner?
With the putting together of this plan. And we're involvement with the assessor or what have you. Is that not a part of the reason we have an application fee when they apply?
No, the application fee, that $500, it really doesn't go that far. So that's kind of the initial conversations of does the project have merit, talking through some of those. Essentially, that's already been spent. And so now we'll be moving forward. And I really think this action has value, not just for this project, but for other projects, to give this board a basis of understanding of what these types of projects may create as far as tax increment. Again, each project will be unique, but it'll at least give you some baseline. We don't have that yet.
Okay, well, in that respect, I will rest. But
Have a motion on the floor. Any other questions?
call the question.
Roll call.
Adams,
No, due to conflict of interest.
so one point of clarification, just in Robert's Rules of Orders, if you have a conflict, it would be appropriate to abstain.
Abstain.
But she can vote no if she wants to.
Warren,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. And that is for me to work with the city assessor to develop future taxable value, conduct tax increment modeling, and also work with code enforcement to make sure the project would align should you choose to support Brownfield.
Yes.
So.
Don't make us argue over your fees when you come back next month. Because I just really don't see a lot you can do with the assessor. He's licensed by the state.
Okay, Ms. King, she has
So
a
that's what
question.
I was gonna ask, the process with the assessor, what does that look, what
Well,
does that
like you said,
look like?
That's what
Process.
she asked.
she wants to have a conversation, have one with you.
The process with the assessor will let you know everything you need to know about that property. The taxable income, who owns it, how it's been there, it's on the tax roll, and the state, the city assessor will let you know everything you need to know.
So just some of
Understand
my,
with that property.
so we're just wondering from a financial standpoint, what would that look like with slowing some of the word down with our departments?
So all of this is you pay for everything up front. So, I mean, I guess I can't speak to slowing it down. You know, if you need to know, if you have support, we'll work through this as fast as we can. But the Brownfield process does typically take a few months, so.
Thank you.
Try to do it at speed as fast as you can, because you're ready to get to moving. I'm excited. Okay.
I just had a quick question that I think is good to talk about and we missed it. So I know you've been mentioning like luxury a lot. Can you speak, Teresa, to the 80 to 120% AMI, would that apply to them if they're doing luxury because they're renting? Because that might be something that might be important to talk about. You may not want to make it too luxurious if we have to, abide by that 80 to 120%.
So
No,
we'll look at what those rental rates are as established by MISTA, but that market rate, essentially if you're targeting that 100% AMI, it would fall within us.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna go off of like the HUD standards and things like that, so yeah.
Okay, sounds great. I'm excited. I'm excited for you, and I just love what,
Let's do it 1,000 times.
I just love what Commissioner Hudson has to say, if you don't speak over me.
Let's go home.
We're not
Let's
here
be
to
the
help
golf
you
course.
in any way we can.
You're free.
So we just have to ask the questions to make sure that everything's on docket, and Teresa's there to help you, the sewer is there to help you, because we want, he's got his hand up. We want all the development that we can get for our citizens.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody involved in the process. This is exactly what I wanted to see, a process that could be applicable to anybody who comes in and needs it. And as you mentioned about the assessor, that's extremely important because that's who's going to set that tax rate.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we.
But he has state guidelines.
2,100.
He's licensed by the state.
Thank
Okay,
you for
motion to
coming.
adjourn.
Mr. Hudson, come and take the seat. Now go out. But motion, no, we're not gonna motion to adjourn. First time program. Thank you, Ms. King, and thank you for coming, and Teresa, thank you. What else do you have?
There's member comments.
Yes, that's what we know. All right, Ms. Hudson. Member comments, thank you, Ms. Commissioner, Emma Kennard, Commissioner.
Yes, I thank everyone for coming out. I think things went, rolled through smoothly, and I felt really good because I saw these ladies make a great presentation. And then this young lady from the last meeting come through and they made a beautiful
Yes.
presentation. And I saw even the ideas that they have is just so unique.
Mhm.
And somebody that looked like me, just a lot younger, is doing great things. So it makes me feel good. So thanks to them and thanks to our group working
Okay,
together.
thank you, very good.
Yes.
Commissioner, Clark, Commissioner Warren.
Thanks for everyone for coming out. I thought it was a productive meeting, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, and thank you all for being interested in choosing Benton Harbor to develop and help to build on our tax base. Because without that, we can't have the services that we do have. You know, sometimes the residents think they're poor services, but just think if we didn't have them at all.
Thank you. I'm just always different. If you tell me you're going to bake a cake, I don't necessarily need your ingredients. I just want to see the cake. So I appreciate all the work that you do. Now we got one real important thing that is hurting me to my heart. But I got somebody in his place, and that's Mr. Mark Horn. Is this your last time to come to the meeting?
Been a pleasure.
I forgot.
He'll just come by and visit with us from time to time.
I mean, it's not like.
Extend the standing rope.
It's been a strong gas class. He'll come by and visit with us from time to time.
This is your last meeting.
Only a phone call away.
There you go. That's what we're talking about.
Hands as you've seen tonight.
We're gonna miss you.
But Teresa, he said he's only a phone call away. Is that gonna cost us?
Motion to
We
adjourn.
neglected to talk about.
Motion to adjourn.
Now, you done had your say, you
Motion to
talked all
adjourn.
to me.
Oh,
And
yes,
I say-
the date of the month that we meet.
We have a
Oh,
motion
yes,
to
yes,
adjourn.
yes. Just a moment. Now that Mr. Mark is leaving, we hate to see him go. But we had a conflict with Teresa not being able, did you work that out for us for the fourth Thursday of she brought that to our attention of every
So,
month?
there was no action taken at that meeting, so if we wanted to keep it at that same time, I do have a conflict. If we wanted to move it to a morning meeting and keep it that fourth Thursday, I could do
Let us
that.
think about it.
I have a job, so I mean.
That fourth Thursday
What
works.
you got? The fourth Thursday?
I have a job, I can't do a morning meeting, I'm saying.
No morning, fourth Thursday, what you?
Let's keep it evening.
Well, we can't do it because she's saying she has a conflict.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Would you like me to kind of pull the board on availability and have that as an agenda item for discussion?
As long as you don't charge us for it.
They're not gonna do.
I mean, well, we paying them now, so I mean, now is the time to
They're
make
not
the
gonna do a
decision.
morning time.
Would you like it on the
So
agenda
now
for
we'll
next
keep
month?
it as it is. Motion to
Teresa,
adjourn.
I need to sign anything.
Mr. Hudson, if
Yes,
you
we
wrote out
have
one,
3 checks that need signatures.
Okay.
oh, 3 checks need to. Mr. If you wrote out, I know what you say, but you're gonna have to put burden out and take it over this week.
Yeah,
I
that's
ain't gonna
what-
spend my money out too much. You come into my golf time. This is
Right,
free.
then you go to golf.
That's where I'm headed. For free? Come on.
Yeah.
Did we have a motion to adjourn, seconded and voted on? Okay.
Turn second, go to the golf. You don't come here. Come here. I've been missing, I saw you when you no, I've been missing, you missing, you something.
How you doing? Thank you so much for your support.
I got to sign some checks.